Hello and welcome back to the Metropole Grid. My name is Andrej.
And I'm Izzy.
And thanks so much for joining me. Izzy, fantastic you can join me. You've been on the channel before. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick for those who might not be too familiar?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm Izzy, she, they. I'm a member of Querying the Message as well as one of the hosts of the podcast. And I've been playing Netrunner competitively for about a year now, seriously, and another 6 months before that I started the game.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you also came up to this event. You're kind of you're across the border. So you come up to some events in Montreal, which is pretty exciting. We're going to actually see your gameplay on stream in a couple rounds. So we're going to have you back to commentate that. But thanks so much for joining me. Again, for those who don't know, this is CanNats 23 here in Montreal at the Silver Goblin. This is round 7. And we have 2 players. Mind you, this is single Swiss. We're only going to see one side of the game. On the left, we have Dan. Dan came up from New England, and he's playing some Hoshiko. We're going to see good stuff Hoshiko. Hoshiko, this was, mind you, before the 2309 ban list. It's still 2308. You played Hoshiko as well. What would you say about Hoshiko going into this event? Was it the obvious choice?
I think that the other good runner options required a lot more attention to good play throughout the day. I think Hoshiko has like the most solid base. If you have good fundamentals, then you can play good Hoshiko all day long at a long event. And I think that makes it a really solid choice for something like this.
I was really excited to see Hoshiko all day because the good fundamentals do shine when you see it piloted well. Also, again, speaking of piloted well, on the right, that is Kyle. That's Sad Stug, who came in from the Toronto area, and he's on a Reality Plus deck. And Reality Plus, I think, was a lot of people said this was, going to be a meta force after the new rotation, the new set. And while we did see a bit of it at 8-Pack Continentals, this is one of my favorite R Plus lists, and it's really unusual. Did you get to play against Kyle at the event?
I did not.
Okay, you're in for a treat here if you haven't seen this deck. And we're off to start again. Ice HQ, something in a remote server. This is like a medium asset list. So it's not the full asset spam. We're still going to see that AR enhanced security, and we'll see how Hoshiko deals with that. Sure gamble to start. With Hosh, you got that open R&D. You always going for a poke there to get your ID flipped?
I certainly try to. Checking the asset here might be more valuable.
Yeah, there's not too many hard punishes anymore. Like, I don't know if you're going to expect some of the traps, but we're going to set up with the Paladin, with the Fermenter. If you can spend that click to access a card again, that flips Hoshiko. So it's like a clickless access with a card and a credit. So we're just setting up this turn, letting the table roll. No Rashida on the table, no AR enhanced security. It looks like just a Regolith. That's kind of a surprising card. This kind of pushes you towards that asset side of things, doesn't it?
It does. Well, R Plus has an interesting spot because a lot of the ice that it's trying to res, like Funhouse, is a lot of money up front. And then it also often lets the runner bounce off of it. And so being able to threaten Funhouse, and especially in a beat that 1001 list, being able to res it without taking a huge economic hit is really important.
Yeah, this is a B1001 list, and seeing that card, which is a card I didn't have the highest expectations for going into the competitive season. It's kind of been performing, not all the spots, but in certain decks, it's a real standout. Looks like we're going for our first access here on the top of the deck. We don't actually know what that is. We don't see that one there, but apparently no trash, no steal. And we have that Hoshiko economy rolling now. We're going to be flipped over digital. We have Paladin, we have Fermenter. That's a really solid start for the economy.
Yeah.
So now we'll see here what Kyle wants to push into remote server again. There's still 6 credits on the Regolith. It feels difficult sometimes to trash that. 6 credits is a lot, but it looks like we're going to finish that off and just put something on the table again. Whether you're expecting a Sansan, that's a lot of money. The Fermenters are a bit harder to rely on with Mavirus, but you're not seeing 2 Mavirus in a lot of these R Plus lists. You can greed that one a bit, I reckon. Now, Digital Hoshiko, looking for that DreamNet, looking for a Gachapon. I think in hand we see Maw. There's a lot of options what console you want to play. We're checking the remote server. And a Sansan City Grid for 5.
That's an expensive trash at this point when you're the runner, but it's hard to let that stand.
Yeah. If they res up for 6, you have to trash it later for sure. So you might as well here while you're already access that. It's going to keep Hoshiko on the digital side. Trading a card for a credit, Hoshiko's quite powerful. That seems like a pretty reasonable trade as long as your economy is doing okay. And a Botchless there, straight onto HQ Ice. What are you expecting there on HQ Ice? I think Virtual Service Assistant is the only blowout if you end up having to Botchless through that.
Yeah, VSA is rough, but it's rough even if you don't Botulus it. Botulus gives you a lot of safety into the face check. I think the cheap gear checks in R Plus are not usually that big of a deal from the subroutines. It's really like your Starlit Knights that you really want to be able to get through cheap if you face check into that.
Yeah, we don't see what's on the top of the deck. I think Starlit Knight, right? Like, it's so hard sometimes to face check into Reality Plus. That like basic fundamental of force them to spend money resing ice. But again, R Plus gets 2 credits whenever they get a tag off, and almost all that ice gives you a tag, whether it's the ping, the VSA, the Starlit Knight. It's kind of hard to pressure them down economically on ice alone in a turn.
Yeah, absolutely. You really need to be pressuring the R Plus to try to make them do multiple things that give you that tag in a turn if you want to have any chance of pressuring them out in that way on ice. And when the R Plus is on almost 20 credits, that's so difficult.
You saw that Fermenter get cracked. My guess is that Oppo Research was accessed off the top of that deck because I don't think you really needed to crack the Fermenter now. I guess you could have cracked it at the end of or the beginning of your next turn if that's the case. But there's our first Oppo Research and one of the most powerful NBN cards in the new set. You play that for free, as much as it doesn't give 4 tags like hard-hitting news, at least until we hit that very important threat 3 threshold. That is 0 credits and a click to give the Anarch 2 tags they have to clear. Now,
yeah, just like cleanly costing half the turn.
Yeah, exactly, and let alone 4 credits. With a Paladin Puemo, like maybe you can consider floating it. What kind of tag punishment are you expecting? Like shipment from Vladisibirsk is not great on this board state. Market Forces, if you keep those tags, that's going to be a real annoyance.
It's interesting. In R+, just the ID ability is almost enough tag punishment on its own.
Yeah. But hey, that's an alt art of a daily cast. I don't think I've seen that one before, which really shows that Dan here is going to want to clear the tag so he doesn't lose those 8 credits. And now back again, economy has slowed down. Paladin Puemo helped with that daily cast. You're gonna get 2 credits a turn. I think we're still in the digital side too, so we're gonna be losing money for card drop. But now starting on, what is it, 4 credits? In the remote server, there's that Sansan. Let's see what we get off the top. It's an AR enhanced security. Now we have an entirely different game. This like one agenda, I think, to me represents so much of the power of NBN right now in standard. It gives a tag the first time a card is trashed. Doesn't matter where the card is, if it's installed, if it's in centrals, if you're stargating, if you're trashing ice. This is a really difficult one, and with only one thing on the table, it's not like you're going to trash 2 things a turn. It's also one of the most succinct, one of the most consistent ways to fire the Reality Plus identity, which that's a powerful identity text box.
Yeah, and like the Anarch Econ at this point is not really keeping up. We see Hippo here, and Hippo is a card that triggers Ares.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, I remember playing against Controlling the Message early on in CanNets years ago and realizing for the first time on top tables that trashing ice causes that to happen. And at Funhouse there, res for 5, well, you can definitely get through that if you want to with the botchless. You're taking a tag and it looks like we're going through. So that's, again, 2 cards or 2 credits. I think with now your Digital Life, which may not be in the deck, makes that decision a bit more interesting. But Hippo, it's going to be another tag, 2 more credits. Actually, we already got our 2 more credits, so at least that's a reasonable way to double dip on that tag. You see Kyle here tracks the tags, so it's something that you want to definitely keep track of, but it makes it seem very much like he has tag punishment. I think you'd be surprised if he doesn't, but he clearly cares about how many tags you have and when you have them.
I would certainly expect to see, I know B1001 is in the list, but also Market Forces and Shipment from Vlad make a lot of sense in a list like this.
First access on HQ, and there's that Market Forces you called. This thing is so punishing when it comes to tags. Floating the tags is just not an option. It slowly pushes you out of the game, and you're kind of expecting every NBN deck you run into is going to have at least 9 points on Bolognas, which means that's a 5-point steal. If you don't have money, you can't interact with nearly half the agendas in the deck, let alone, of course, all the other parts of Netrunner you still have to play. So we're 1 tag in. We did trash a card. Oppo Research, does it say trash a card or trash a card you've accessed? I think accessed, right?
I think accessed.
So we're safe there. We're going back again. 2 tags here. We can't even clear them. We might have to float a tag. Going back on a die roll. We're going to get that middle card again. The Tomorrow's Headline. 2 credits. Definitely excited to steal that. We're now 3 tags in. At least this was a turn where you took a lot of tags to deny Reality Plus that continual value, but you're kind of in a really awkward spot here. You know that if you keep your money, you'll get market forced. So you're kind of incentivized to start slowly clearing them. We'll see if Kyle has more punishment in hand. Still a healthy 8 credits.
It would be a really early point in the game to go tag me. Like, you've got money on cast. I would be very surprised if the cast doesn't get there it is, trashed right there.
Yes. Love that. Again, trashing resources, the inbuilt tag punishment every corp has access to. 2 credits seems pretty expensive sometimes to trash a resource. And with 6, it's not too much if you have to res an ice on HQ, but we're assuming that those tags are going to be pretty consistent with Reality Plus. So it can be a bit, a bit more aggressive. Down to no credits though. Digital Hoshiko taking away that last credit for card draw. We've seen hand of Fermenter. I think that's one of the nice ways that you can kind of play around market forces, if you want to call it that. I think less and less people in Standard are playing Self-Growth Program, a card that used to be pretty common when Endurance was allowed in the format. And so that's going to come down for free. That's at least a backup economy option, and you'd love to see it. This card, obviously, it's kind of the backbone of a lot of Anarch decks, as much as some Anarch decks are cutting it because of the Mavirus.
Yeah, Fermentor's a little tough to play consistently right now. It's definitely a point where the runner needs to sit back and set up. Like, this is a turn where the Corp isn't really threatening to truly blow out the runner. So having like that chance to get ahead, like the long-term Anarch Econ has the ability to come back and overcome the R plus tax, but trying to go too aggressive here really gives the R plus a chance to keep that pressure on and not let that Anarch Econ get out of hand.
Kyle's on the clock here. That Federal Fundraising, again, we talked about Oppo maybe being the most powerful NBN card, but Federal Fundraising is such a bonkers card, allowing you to look at the top three so you can control R&D, you control HQ, it gives you free card draw. So we're going to see again, double install Trash Paladin, just saying your economy might not keep up. All you have is a Fermentor and you're still tagged here. You know, if you want to trash any of these, that's going to be another tag, which is a 2 credit swing, maybe a 2 card draw swing. And with that Sansan, you know, just draw into your, we're assuming there's probably Project Beals in this deck. It works pretty well with Shipment from Vladisibirsk if they are, you know, tagged up. But you can just start scoring off the top. Well, I don't know if he's tempo positive ways to capitalize off the score, though. It might just be points.
Yeah, we really appreciate a big Beal when we see it.
Yeah, we don't see it enough. They used to be really common in like competitive Standard play, that big old psychographic spiel, but it looks like there we're going to just click 4, I believe, clear the tag, flip out for the first time. I think we might have not flipped out last turn. I'm not sure if Dan went for the access there. I'm throwing out probably the most expensive card in the deck. That would be Maw. Nico Campaign. Interesting card. Often you see Maryland out of faction a bit more, and while Nico Campaign is definitely a bit more aggressive, it is on tempo. It gives you credits a turn that it's installed if it survives. 2 trash cost is, it kind of shows you how confident Kyle is that he can build a board state that's going to be difficult for you to trash, because AR enhanced security is always part of the equation.
Yeah, and I think with Oppo as a follow-up, your Nico Campaign feels a lot better than it did prior with hard-hitting news.
There you go. Beal on the Sansan. That's your whole turn. Just 2 credits to get up to 3 points here. So if you do not trash that Sansan, there is a line that, you know, we get to 7 points. We have to find every other Beal in the deck. It's a bit ugly. I don't know if you need to score the second AR enhanced security. It doesn't really stack with Reality Plus in any meaningful way. So maybe we need to get a Bologna on top of it. And with the Fermentor, we'll see. Okay, there it goes. How long Dan's going to be holding on to this one. So I think that was 6 credits. We're up to 7 now. You can consider trashing the Sansan. We don't have a tag yet. Sure, gamble. Nice transition up to some healthy credits. And Hoshiko just kind of being kind of strong-armed out of the game. This is a really good recovery if you want to get back and start trashing stuff.
It is. It's really hard to trash the Sansan here. You need to find the time to get in. You have to find the time to clear the tag, or you're getting market forces and you're right back out of it.
Yeah, that's a big thing. You know, just getting that Beal out itself doesn't do too much. Oh, mind you, Rashida and the remote server just living out there for another turn. But the threat 3 has been hit. So now Oppo Research is a 5 credit play to give 4 tags. And with all this control draw now, Rashida, Federal Fundraising, it's, I would say, pretty guaranteed. I think you would expect the corporation there to have an Oppo Research in hand. So, you know, it's not just the 1 tag. It's going to be 4 more tags if you want to take down that Sansan City Grid. Oppo Research, such an interesting card. Like, I'm stoked that hard-hitting news doesn't exist anymore, but it's not the sort of card you're seeing in every single faction. You could basically play hard-hitting news everywhere, and it seems a lot more nuanced, as much as I do think it does feel a bit overbearing sometimes in Reality Plus. So the economics on Dan's side are going to be really important. Luckily, we got a daily cast down there at the end of the turn.
Having so few ways to clear an extra tag in a turn, clicklessly, like we did with Deuces, like we did with Misdirection in the previous meta, has really shifted how it feels to get hit by your Oppo Research.
Yeah, just about everyone, barring Hannah, doesn't deal with it well. And we're going to ice up, again, another install. We did get a Rashida there, so you could expect to be some agendas in HQ. Mind you, that sometimes happens with Federal Fundraising. If you see an agenda, you just put it on the bottom third, and then you just keep putting it down and keep putting it down. But Rashida will force you to draw that agenda. Steel Skin for 3. If we look at the hand, we finally have a DreamNet. We see some of those criminal cards. I think we saw Pinholes go through the hand. We have a Waken Plant if you want to get those maybe cheap runs on HQ, but it has been iced up for a minute. And now icing up the Sansan, understanding that it is a win condition. DreamNet, before it was banned, a card and a credit. So we're checking that unice the innermost. It's B1001. This thing is so tricky. Have you played against a B1001 deck?
I have.
What do you
A little
think
bit
about
in
it?
testing. I think it is a pretty good border control imitator. And
Yeah.
I think that's often good enough. It often costs the runner 2 clicks on a critical turn.
And now with the tax of Reality Plus, and or more accurately, the air enhanced security, that adds up to a lot of different things you have to do at once. You have to trash that, you have to take the tag. Again, if you're assuming the ice on the remote server is something like a ping or a funhouse, you really have to deal with it unless you have something like a hush or sometimes like an air blades gets you through it. And I don't think we expect many of those exact cards in this Hoshiko list.
No, Hush seems more plausible than Airblades.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're happier with that with the ping. So we're going to get the flip over again, gain 2 credits. We're going to lose one of them for a card job, but with DreamNet now we're pretty happy to stay entirely digital. I think we're throwing out there, that's an Mawmakua. And I think we have another one in hand. I think this is the Mawmakua type lists, right? And we haven't seen them too commonly. I think they're hard to play right now with all the virus. I don't know if you found that to be the truth.
Oh yeah, I tested an Mawmakua build for Cannats, and it's just so hard when you can get purged out at instant speed and into the worst possible face check that the Corp has for you. Not fun.
Mavirus now is like pretty commonly a 2 of. I'd expect at least 1 in this list. It does kind of line up well, even with the AR enhanced security off central. So we'll see how far it is, because we haven't seen a breaker so far besides that Mawmakua. And some of those lists are just like, Chisel, Devil Charm, Mawmakua, and they're playing, as much AI threat as they can, and then some extra pieces to work on some of the downsides.
Mawmakua Leech plus Charm goes a really long way, even through your purge. It's hard to keep up the pressure consistently.
Triple install in and in front of their remote server. Again, San using that as like a tempo, kind of seamless launch is something you don't see often. It's like, sure, it is a fast advanced tool, but also you can use it like a Lacosta and actually put stuff on top of it. Maybe a lot of eggs are in one basket, but with no breakers so far, a B1000 on the table, and assuming some ice that gives a tag, this is still a very difficult server to kind of deal with.
Yeah, we've only seen the one Funhouse.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And just about all the ice tags you, right? Like Starlit Night, Virtual Service Assistant, Ping. I don't think you play any ice really in the Reality Plus deck that doesn't work with tags.
Certainly not in these asset style lists. You see some of the more just plain gear checks more often in like the Laura's Mari style Crypto Crash or off-world office builds.
Pinhole, Mawmakua comes down. We'll get the DreamNet Fire here. We should. And the question is, what are you accessing? Because you don't have to tell the corporation until the run's successful. So 2 cards on the remote server. You could just take down the San, but it looks like we're going to look at the second topmost card, and Manic Skunk works. 3 influence on this card.
That's a good pinhole hit.
Yeah. If you trash this though, you do get a tag. It turns on Reality Plus. It fires once here, but it's probably cheaper now than having to pay 2 clicks and 5 credits. This is not the first card I would expect in Reality Plus, and I love the fact that this is the card that you need to trash. If you're losing clicks and 5 credits, Oppo Research is online, it's hard to clear the tags. It's kind of a really nice synergy, as much as I've never seen the two combine in a single deck.
This really feels like a good situation for the Corp to be in, where like even after the pinhole line, there's only so much that can be done to actually get into the remote. The credits just aren't there.
So that's a retroactive DreamNet. You have a tag. You did trash something. I think on 13 credits, Kyle's pretty comfortable giving you 4 tags off the Oppo here. So install Advance, if that's not an agenda in the remote server, set up a San, push a Blown Out while also giving you 4 tags. This is pretty difficult. We're going to clear the tag down to 3 credits. It'll be only, I guess, 4 credits after Daily Cast and Hosh. Still looking at the top 3.
I really think you have to keep clearing the tags right up until you get Oppo'd for 4. Like keeping the DreamNet on the table as long as possible is critically important.
And once you're 5 tags in or 4 tags in, like you just have to trash the B1001 first. You're on 6 tags, and then you can start playing the game again, that's quite difficult. So drawing off the top there, second ice on R&D.
Looks like a Blown It in the remote.
Yeah, just cooking a Blown It, understanding, but no Oppo. I think that's pretty big here for Dan, because he doesn't have the money to clear that. As much as 10 credits doesn't go too far. We don't have a Nico on the table anymore. We have no pad campaign, nothing giving, economy from turn to turn. So at least the Blown
If your plan is to res a Funhouse in order to keep the runner out with the B1001, that's dropping to really low credits, especially if the runner decides to bounce off of the Funhouse.
Yeah, the bounce on the Funhouse is the worst part.
Playing Oppo there just feels like maybe it's a bit greedy even.
Bouncing. Just to get the Hoshiko value engine, you get the DreamNet, so card and a credit. You do get that 1 counter on the Mawmakua, which goes pretty far in the matchup. Ping, mind you, is 1 strength. And there's the Devil Charm, so there's no ice that we can't deal with. 7 strength gets you through every single NBN ice in the format right now if you need to crack that. With only 4 credits, if you assume that's a Bologna in the remote server, you can't steal it now. Maybe it's a Beal. I think that's your best case if you are going to challenge the remote server, but again, we do know there's a B1000, the Enforcer, the Terminator still roaming the streets out there. Difficult here again. 9 points in the deck out of the 20. Oh, it's worth noting too that this is not an 18-point deck. This is a 49 card Reality Plus deck, which is something you can do. So that's slightly less than half the deck on Bologna.
Yeah, and R plus is one of the strange IDs where it sometimes does make more sense to go up to 49. You just have so much card draw built in that you can have the same level of consistency or pretty darn close to it while having a bit more lasting power throughout the game. It's surprisingly easy in a 40 card R plus deck to draw the whole thing before you're able to score out.
Dan's charging. He clicked for 1 credit, so that does respect Bologna as much as you're expecting to spend some money on the ice, but that's a funhouse. You can't go through this. If you go through this, you know the B1001 will at least clear the tag. So we took 1 tag on encounter.
It is cheaper to pay 1 to break the funhouse and let the B1000 clear the tag.
Yeah.
Although you just let the runner in here. They can't steal the Bologna.
He has 5 credits, he can. Because he took the
Not
second
if he
tag.
pays to break the... Oh, to break... Yep, if he took the second tag, yep.
Yeah, he took the second tag. So there's the B1001 finally rezzed. I think Kyle might have forgotten to pay... No, excuse me. Yeah, so that's the B1000 rezzed. Going to clear the tag again. It feels good when the Corp is clearing the tag for you. You still are going to end your turn here on 1 tag. That means you can score out the Bologna.
If you're going to end your turn tagged, doing it when the corporation wants to spend all clicks advancing is not a bad time to do it, but it still feels like a rough spot for the runner.
Kyle only has to spend 2 clicks, right? Because of the Sansan?
True.
So you could, I don't know if you need to trash the DreamNet here, but you could score out. Again, you actually make a credit scoring the Bologna out when you spend 4 to gain 5, which is pretty goofy. Advance, we'll
that
see
looks
again.
like what we're seeing.
Yeah. It is a Bologna. It's interesting. Beal doesn't really work on top of Sansan because of the way the wording is, if I'm not mistaken, if you want to go for a big Beal. But now he has a click left here. 9 credits after that Bologna. Bringing out if he just wants to jam in the remote server. And again, we know that Kyle cannot contest that remote server until he deals with the B1001, and that's going to be another tag.
And other than the Bolognas, every agenda left in the deck is now a fast advanced threat to win.
Yes. 6 points, the 3 ones. Oh, I believe here it's a judge call. I think he forgot to do his mandatory and instead did the federal fundraising. So I think they're calling me over right now. I'm not sure if I remember which way this was ruled here, but he does know what the 3 cards at the top of the deck is. The federal fundraising is optional. Obviously the mandatory isn't, so that could just eat the trigger, but we'll figure out how we resolve this. So what does Dan have to do here? There's a market forces still in hand. Whether you want to spend a click to rob 3 credits to make it yours, that puts Dan away from the Bologna. Mind you, you have 9 credits. That's probably enough. Again, you res generally 1 ice a turn for free off of most of the 2 credit reses that give a tag. What is Dan's line out here? I think he has a Stargate from hand. Like, you can maybe control the top of the deck as much as you're going to go real tag me really quickly for multiple reasons. But again, if you top deck a 3-1 or a 3-2, that's it.
I think it's very hard to go tag me in a useful manner here. We're expecting Starlit Night on pretty much any server it makes sense to be put on. We're expecting the B1001 and Funhouse to be able to end the run, if not that. It's like, at this point, you need to take down the Sansan if you can't lock R&D. You need to take down the B1001 to do anything. It's a hard spot for the runner. I think, like, being able to get back to a point where you can get in when you need to get in is the #1 priority, though.
Just trashing the daily cast with only 2 credits on it. Again, saying if you don't have money, you can't play the game anymore. And you're totally right. Like, you can't even pinhole the Sansan until you deal with the B1001. It's really hard to claw yourself out of this situation. So see here, we have a Hippo. Again, Ice Destruction gives you tags. But this is game point with the Sansan on the table. There's something you definitely need to do here. Oh, overhand size. So we're going to discard that Mog, and that makes a lot of sense. So now Hosh should start the turn. Not sure if we got the card in the credit yet. Again, that drops you further even away from the Bologna. It's like there's like no good way to force a run to make the B1001 clear the tag for you. Like at a minimum, you can always run the federal fundraising. If Kyle clears a tag for you, fine. If not, you fire DreamNet, you fire Amakua. That's also okay too. And it looks like that's where we're going to start here. We might have missed the host trigger. I'm not sure.
I think we did.
Card and credit, Amakua. Looking at that Stargate in his hand, understanding maybe if he controls the top of the deck, he can have some say on the narrative of the game going forward. But here with the federal fundraising, you just are assuming Kyle's going to be able to close the game if that Sansan can't go down.
With 7 credits, and the R plus here can res any ice in the deck and still have the money to fast advance out.
Yep. Yeah, just need 2 credits for that. So trying to figure out what to pressure. Again, every access that you make on Centros with less than 5 credits, so that puts you off Bologna, but we're going to just take down B1001. That's 3 credits. Again, AR gives you a tag. That's 2 more credits for the Corp. We're 2 tags in. Shipment from Vladisibirsk is potentially online. That is one of the 2 tag fast advance pieces. Not that you're going to really need it unless a Bologna comes to play.
I'd be really surprised, I think, as I'm thinking more about slots, to see Shipment and Sansan in the same deck. I suspect those 2 compete for the same slot in the list.
Yeah, maybe with 49 cards, right? Like you get a bit more reach, but I know building 44 R pluses, the slots get very, very tight very quickly. Fundraising, look at. I don't know. I think like that replaced the mandatory draw. I don't think he actually chose to draw off of it and just install advance. That is very much looking like a big old Bologna in the remote server. How do you get in there? You could just send
with
it.
No
really.
money? Mm.
Yeah, no money, right? You need an imp.
I think here you have to gachapon end of turn to try to find a fermenter to try to have a chance of having money here. Even that's like not quite enough. I'm not sure how many fermenters are on the list. They might be all out at this point.
That's like the biggest play that you see across Hoshiko's is understanding when you want to pop the gachapon. We rarely see it on the Corp's turn. You rarely see it as like a, let's find a botchless. It's more often at the end of their turn. Again, so you have things like Paladin, so you have things like Fermenter, even, botchless works, excuse me. So we'll see. Now we're on 3 Yamaku counters. Funhouse is strength 4. If you do want to break it, you can't just take the tag. And it looks like we're charging the remote server here. We only have 1 credit though. I don't think you even have to do anything unless that's not a Beal, but if it wasn't a Beal, you would have fast advanced it. Or sorry, if it wasn't a Bologna, you would have fast advanced it. So I'm not sure what you have to do here. I don't think you have to do anything as a Corp. Ooh, a Blade of a Barrier, threat 3 online. Enforcer's coming back to play. You cannot run that server anymore.
That's just rude.
That's such a cool combo. Now we're Amakuing it through it. Now I don't know if you have to Amakua through that, right? Because even if you get through the Funhouse, you're just forcing the Enforcer res. So while I don't think it's necessary, just revealing a Bologna. And that means you can't stop it, let alone, of course, with 3 tags here. This is the sort of lock the B1001 gets down. If you can't trash the B1001, it's game over. You can't make any more runs. Double Bologna. What is that? 9 points for the corporation? Well played.
Yeah, that was really nicely done by the Corp there. Just really putting out the things that provide pressure in the positions they need to be, having good ice placement in order to handle the remote. The ablative was a very nice include in the list.
Yeah, I think this deck actually has like some interesting ice that you might not expect. I think it has an ablative. I think it has a couple drafters, which is quite nice. Just so that if you do, run a bit too aggressively, that board state can repair. Because like immediately getting a B1001 out of nowhere is like immensely powerful, especially because there's so many things you need to trash in this list. And again, with the Managarm Skunk Works, it's really difficult to kind of win that tempo war by just charging a remote server over and over again. I think this list is
It's really
awesome.
true.
Yeah.
And I wasn't counting exactly how many cards the Hoshiko was drawing, but the amount of pressure the Corp was putting on was really keeping the Hoshiko off of going through their deck in a way that I've seen a lot of Hoshiko decks really try to do in the optimal case. And I think what a major outcome of that was not seeing as many of the econ cards that are in those Hoshiko decks that have such a high density of econ. And once that econ faltered, that was going to be a very hard spot for the runner to get out of.
Yeah, only 1 Oppo research, obviously immensely powerful, just like putting in a huge brick into that mid-game tempo where you're trying to push forward. But that's a very interesting matchup. Again, I don't think we saw too much Mawmakua Hoshiko to date. We didn't see the engine come up, and as you said, like the economy was kind of pressured in a way that didn't let the runner set up. It's more a bit of scrambling, which, if the Corp can push you there, that's a good spot for them to be for sure.
And just think how different the game would be if they hadn't gone for that early Sand Trash that cost 5 credits. Or if they'd found a Miss Bones, a card that I would be surprised not to see 1 or 2 of, even in a Hoshiko list.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a wild game. Again, that is just round 7. We have 3 more rounds before we even hit the top cut. Izzy, once again, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks so much for having me.
And we'll be back in a bit. Ciao. Hey, thanks so much for watching. What a fantastic game. Getting to see B1001 be cogent tag punishment is an absolute treat. And shout out to some really interesting deck building from Kyle to make all of that work. And we're gonna see a bit more of Kyle because going into, I think the day 2, Kyle had to win every single game to make the top cut, and boy, he did. So we're gonna see more of the Terminator and more Kyle in the top cut. We're in for a treat. Speaking of Dan too, well played to Dan. Dan was also on Atea, which unfortunately we're not going to see on camera, but super stoked to see that kind of underrepresented identity from the Automata Initiative. Thanks so much for traveling up. And again, speaking of thank you to all these names here and more. Again, these are just some of the patrons for the Metropole Grid. We're up on Patreon, link in the description. And videos like this are only possible with the support from the community. These things take a lot of time. So thank you so much to all these names here and all the Daily Cast patrons. Without your support, this just simply wouldn't be possible. Huge shout out also to Izzy, who joined us for the commentary. Izzy, mind you, part of Querying the Message QTM testing group. They have a podcast, link in the description. I'm a really big fan, and Izzy will be returning for some more commentary just a couple games from now. So thanks so much. On that note, we're just about out for Worlds. We'll be back in a bit. World starts just next week. We have a bunch of videos lined up. The whole series will be trucking on through, even if we're not here to do some streams. But catch the live stream at Null Signal Netrunner on Twitch. Thanks for watching. Ciao.